Hey, how are you? Welcome to the Foreshore. This is a fantastic little spot. I stumbled across it. Really interesting, beautiful finds, all of a similar period from about the late 1880s up into probably about 1930. And a real insight onto the people that lived and worked here. That bottle, that torpedo bottle, incredible, which you'll see, and the other bottle, and the silver coin, and the whistle, really quite wonderful. Lovely little spot. Anyway, hope you enjoy. I love the way life sometimes works. I'd lost my trowel, and this was at the end of the day, and I was wandering around desperately trying to find it, and I happened across this most incredible torpedo bottle. Now also I just want to point out that stone there, which looks like a pig snout. So many people have pointed that out. I didn't see it. I was so focused on this bottle. Otherwise I probably would have taken that stone as well. This is a rare, incredible find for me. A complete bottle with cork. Normally I find fragments, but it would have been going up and down the Thames for 150 years or so. It's a mineral water bottle, carbonated, originating from stone, greenhithe. It's quite beautiful, and I will treasure this. A fair exchange, I think, this for my trowel. The last thing I expected to find here was a silver coin. Now you can probably see it here. It stands out because it's round and everything around it is non-round. So it does stand out. Now, I didn't think this was silver when I first picked it up because it's tarnished. If this was gold, of course, it would come out gleaming if it's good gold. But this is silver, 92.5% good stuff. And it's from 1880. It's a 1 shilling piece with a young Queen Victoria on the reverse, which is interesting because 1880, of course, was later on in her reign. So you'd have expected maybe an older bust, but this is the younger bust because it's from an earlier print. When I first saw this, I thought this was a coin, just that rounded edge poking from underneath that rock. Turns out this actually is a fly button, and I found 3 in total in this small spot. The second one also had something written on it. This one has Ne plus ultra written on it, which is Latin, means no more beyond. And it's famously said to have been inscribed on the Pillars of Hercules on either side of the Strait of Gibraltar as a warning for sailors not to travel beyond the edge of the known world. I found enough cutlery here for a small picnic. This was one of, I think, 3 or 4 spoons. 2 of them had makers' names, but this one on the base just said Ware White Stainless Nickel Silver. When I first saw this in the mud, I assumed it was a single figurine. It's only when I got it home and I started to research that I realized that this actually is 1/2 of a pair. And this is what is referred to as a kissing couple from the Netherlands. Now, when I saw this figurine, I thought it was a little girl, but actually when I researched it, I realized that this is the boy with tulips on his back. Now, there's a maker's name and a number on the base, but it's incomplete. Most of the text sits with the other half. Age-wise, I would probably place this from 1920s or 1930s, judging by the writing on the base. So all the other items that I found in that area, it would seem true to be of that period. There were 3 of these stoneware jugs in this very small area, Now all three were complete, and all three still had the cork in it, and I was so tempted to try and find out what was in those, whether it was actually the original liquid. But I mean, come on, that's been sitting in the mud and in the Thames for such a long time. So thankfully I didn't succumb to the taste test. Who knows what was still in there. I came across 3 coins in this area in total and 1 token. One of them was a silver one that you saw earlier. This was the second one I found. It's a Queen Victoria. Very hard to see the dates, quite eroded. And it's a 1 penny. This looks just a picture, like somebody was having a picnic. The tide came in and they had to leave suddenly and they just never came back. And 100 years later, that's what's left. Now this was a second stoneware jug, complete with cork, that I found, still full of liquid. And also this fork sticking out of the ground. And then this mug. But what's amazing about this mug is what's written on it, and you'll see that in a second. So amazing is this fork has maker's details on the base, and it is Corey and Sons, which is Fenchurch Street, EC3, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But look at this on the mug, PLA, which of course is the Port of London Authority, and this is the body that governs the waterway, the Thames waterway, and also issues the mudlarking permit. This is the second fly button that I found. It's interesting because the fly buttons, they have the maker's name and also the address or an indication where they came from. So you can kind of trace the tailor or the maker of this button. Now this was beautiful because written on it is H. Alvarez. So this is the tailor's name. But then underneath is Canning Town, and this gives an indication actually where I found it. It's very close. But what's beautiful also is the fact I live very close to Canning Town, so a little piece of local history. This is one of 4 knives that I found in the area. It's funny, isn't it, because this is East London, and when you tend to find knives in the river, it kind of indicates one thing. This, though, I don't believe is that. I think this is generally a part of the other cutlery that's been lost or dumped. I came across 3, I think, in total live ammunition in this particular area. This one's similar to the other one I found, the live one. Squash, though, interesting shape, like something very heavy had come down on it. And I couldn't really read the base that well, so I wasn't sure exactly what it is. I'm assuming it's a 303. This was the second spoon I found with Corey and Sons stamped on the back, but this one was different. It said Corey and Sons London EC3, whereas the other one had Corey and Sons Fenchurch Street EC3. So I did a bit of research, and Corey and Sons was a transportation company set up in 1896, and primarily they were delivering coal on barges through to London. And once it dropped off the coal, rather than an empty barge going back, they would fill those barges up with rubbish and take them out to Kent and Essex to be dumped in the marshes and into the disused quarry pits. Now, originally they were based at 52 Mark Lane. This was the original company headquarters, and I think this is the older spoon that just says London EC3. And then they moved in 1933 to Fenchurch Street. So that was the second spoon that had Fenchurch Street on there, so much later. So the building at Fenchurch Street, the Corey building, quite incredible, but very sadly was demolished in 2014. And this is what stands in its place now. When I first saw this, I thought this was some kind of cufflink. And I took it home and I cleaned it, and I still wasn't sure, so I put it out into the mudlarking community to ask what it was. I was curious because there was a ring on the back of it, so it looks like a fly button, but I didn't understand what the ring was. And very amazingly, as always, very supportive, came back that this was indeed a button from Workwear, a removable button, so when the workwear was washed and dried in the mangle, the buttons would be taken off and then reattached at the end. So this is from late 1800s, early 1900s. These were two more live rounds I found in this particular stretch of the Foreshore, and I believe them to be 303s, though I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't see the base as much as I wanted to. On the base you can normally see the type of casing and also the date on there, but I couldn't see. I didn't have my glasses and it was just so muddy. But the question is, what do you do when you find live ammunition? One thing I don't do is take it with me. I couldn't possibly put it in my bag and go on the London Underground with live ammunition. So invariably I do leave it there. This is on a low tide, quite far out and particularly safe. I tend to push it deeper and deeper into the mud or throw it out a bit further into the water. There were quite a few of these on this particular stretch. They are ceramic insulators. I didn't find that many clay pipes down on this particular stretch. I thought I would find more, but only I think 3 in total. And all of a similar age. I would put this as Victorian, probably late 1800s, and that's totally in line with the coins that I've been finding, all of that period up until the 1930s. This is a vulcanite bottle stopper, late Victorian, and it has the maker's name on the top, which in this case is Beatty. And Beatty was known late 1800s for making ginger beer. Now on the reverse of this, it has E22, and I have no idea. I tried finding out what that means, but I have no idea. So if you know, I would love you to let me know. Please do leave a comment. I kind of sensed I knew what this was only because this is East London and I come across many of these types of bowls on East London. It is a Hindu offering bowl, I believe. Normally I find smaller ones. This is another ceramic insulator. In this case brown, the others were white. And I came across quite a few of these brown ones. And I also have green versions of these, British Racing Green, quite beautiful, from 1941, has the date stamped on them. I was very curious actually if this had the same as the other mug, the PLA markings on it. But as it turned out, this actually was a plain cup, a plain mug. No markings whatsoever, not even on the base. So stumped really as to maybe the origins or where it was from. And then there was this third mug which I found, sadly not complete, though I didn't know that because it's half buried in the mud. But interesting, this time it had something written on the base and it gave an indication as to the make of this, which was Hercules vitrified, and made by Grind something. See if you can spot what we're looking at here and what it is. And what I found fascinating about this is, like life, you spend enough time in a certain environment, actually you almost become part of that environment. And this is interesting, this is a padlock and it's kind of taken on the same colours and shape and texture as the rocks of, by which it spends all the rest of its life with. Beautiful the way it just blends in. I wouldn't say that this is particularly old. I would think it's reasonably modern, judging by the rest of the things that I found in that area. This was just a thing of beauty, and it was the first thing that I found when I first came to this particular patch of the Foreshore. So that kind of set the pace and the precedent for what's to come. Just great finds on this little patch. 3 times in total I went here. This was from the first time. It is, of course, a whistle. It's called the Acme Thunderer. First produced 1884. Was used on the Titanic and every major sports event pretty much since it was made. Beautiful piece of history.